Let's talk about Quincy Jones real quick. Quincy Jones, a man who came and lived bigger than life itself and passed away. Just like one day all of us will pass away, but some of us won't be remembered as Quincy Jones is. He's legendary in life. If you think about Michael Jackson, if you think about people like Tupac Shakur, if you think about the great names in music and entertainment, they probably had something to do with Quincy Jones. Whitney Houston, Quincy Jones had something to do with them at one point or another of their career. I remember when a scandal broke that Quincy Jones was upstairs having an affair with some music executive, and Quincy Jones was really gay. Tupac Shakur actually said he was trying to get at Quincy Jones' daughter, but Quincy Jones was trying to get in his ass. So it was even back then, and this was years ago. If you think about Eddie Murphy, Pharrell, you name it, Quincy Jones was a part of their journey at some point, or they all respect him. Now, Quincy Jones, the legendary record producer and 28-time Grammy winner, has died at the age of 91. His publicist confirmed that he passed away on November 3rd at his home in the Bel Air area of Los Angeles, surrounded by his family. Now, throughout the decades, his long career, Quincy Jones earned the title of one of the most celebrated musicians and producers in history, bar none, mainly for his collaborations with big names like Michael Jackson, Frank Sinatra, Diana Ross, Aretha Franklin, and Ray Charles. I was gonna say Dionne Warwick, but she also too. Now, in fact, it was his first meeting with Michael Jackson that would later establish him as one of the most successful music producers in the world. Not only did Quincy Jones produce Michael Jackson's 1982 album Thriller, the best-selling album of all time. This is just telling y'all how powerful and prominent this man is. Thriller, Michael Jackson, that's Quincy Jones' production. But his composing credit also included the scores for 1967's In Cold Blood, in 1985, The Color Purple. Jones led an illustrious career in television as well, serving as an executive producer for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And now we're talking about Will Smith. And Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, as we all know, launched Will Smith's career into the megastar that Will Smith is today. Now, for record sales and royalties to multimedia companies and real estate, Quincy Jones has 7 children, including his actor daughter, Rashida Jones. This is the one who I believe Tupac Shakur was trying to get with, or did get with. Now, neither here nor there. Let's get back to the story. Now, including his daughter Rashida Jones, are set to inherit a staggering fortune following his death. Now, this is what you call paying it forward. See, in the black community, a lot of us don't pay it forward. A lot of us live YOLO, you only live once, or we spend up everything on shoes and clothes and hoes and drinks and partying and whatever. And then we leave nothing behind. So every generation that comes after you will have to struggle and start from the bottom and get it out the mud, as we say it. Whereas other groups of people, the Asians, the Caucasians, you name them, they practice paying it forward. So when you see them with wealth, usually it's not their hard-earned wealth. That's usually handed down from grandma to mom to the current person, from grandpa to dad to the current person. And, you know, it's real that we should start doing the same thing. Now, speaking of handing down wealth or passing on or paying it forward wealth, let's talk about Quincy Jones and what he was able to do. So after spending much of his early career touring in jazz bands, he received his big break from Mercury Records, presiding Irving Green, who was presiding over Mercury Records at the time, who offered Quincy Jones a personal loan and a job as vice president of Mercury, making him the first black person ever to hold such a position. Now you got to understand that Quincy was highly decorated at this time, and everybody was seeking after him for his musical expertise. So given that position, it wasn't just given to him, he earned it. Now it was in 1958 that Quincy Jones first worked with legendary singers like Frank Sinatra, the professional relationship that would later transform into a close friendship. Upon his death in 1998, Frank Sinatra even left Quincy Jones a ring, and that ring was emblazoned with his family crest and was said to be worth a whole lot of money. But it wasn't about the money, it was about him passing it to a lifelong friend. In a Facebook post that was shared on March 9th of 2016, Quincy Jones shared a black and white photo of the oval-shaped ring which he wore on his pinky finger. He said, "This right here is the ring that bears Frank Sinatra's family crest from Sicily. Francis wore it for 40 years before leaving it to me when he passed, and I wear it every single day. It's one of my most prized possessions because it has and will continue to represent our everlasting friendship." Right? Earlier this year, a similar gold gift gifted to Tony Bennett by Sinatra sold at auction for $63,500. According to Julian Auctions, Sinatra commissioned 12 copies of his own gold pinky ring featuring the Sinatra family crest, a crowned rampant lion with 3 stars, to give to close friends and family members. Jones went on to score several films. This is Quincy's history now. He went on to score several films in the 60s, including In Cold Blood, of which he received his first Oscar nomination for Best Original Score. Following its premiere in 1967, In Cold Blood earned an estimated $13 million US, approximately $122.54 million US today. And he was getting to that money from in the 60s. The 80s saw one of the most successful periods of his career. He had approached filmmaker Steven Spielberg after receiving the adaptation rights to Alice Walker's 1982 novel called The Color Purple, and he convinced Spielberg to direct the film, with himself serving as co-producer and composer. The Color Purple grossed an estimated $98.47 million in the United States and Canada following its theatrical release, and it earned 11 Oscar nominations in 1986. Jones also played a hand in a 2023 movie musical adaptation of The Color Purple, once again serving as producer alongside Spielberg. However, the second adaptation of the novel performed less than it did the first time at the box office. However, it still pulled in $67.5 million despite having a $100 million budget. They overshot the budget. They lost a couple of $1 million on that one. But that's cool. That's cool. Because while working on the film, 1978, The Wiz, Jones embarked on his first collaboration with Michael Jackson for his album Off the Wall, which was released the following year. Off the Wall has since sold over 20 million hard copies worldwide. Now, we're not talking about streaming and that. We're talking about when hard copies were sold. 20 million sold, and you can imagine and do the mathematics if we were selling them at $12 to $15 a piece, because that's how much it actually cost back then to purchase an album. Crazy money. Only to do even better by the duo's second collaboration, which was Thriller. Thriller being his second album, Michael Jackson's second album, made history. And that was in just 1 year. Jackson's 1982 album went on to sell 32 million copies worldwide after just selling 20 million copies. I'm not a mathematician, but if you add 30 to 22 in a year's space, they sold over 52 million records worldwide. Hard copies of these records. 52 million times 12 to $15 per album. You do the math. It is the best-selling album of all time. Since its November 1982 release, Thriller, to this day, has sold over 70 million copies worldwide. And that's just Thriller. We're not talking about his other albums. However, Quincy Jones' illustrious career producing some of Michael Jackson's biggest hits also led to legal disputes following Michael Jackson's death. In July of 2017, Quincy Jones won a lawsuit against Michael Jackson's estate for $9.4 million in damages for unpaid royalties. In 2020, Quincy Jones lost an appeal and had to return $6.8 million of that $9.4 million that he won. And of course, if you ask me, something was fishy because they were debating this and they were disputing this while Michael Jackson was alive. But once Michael Jackson was dead, they went for whatever he had left, his money, right? And these were people who were said to be close to Michael and had no issues with him really. Now, much of Quincy Jones's financial success later came through his accomplishments, though, as an entrepreneur. In partnership with Warner Brothers Records, Quincy Jones founded a music label called Quest Records in 1980. 10 years later, he established his own multimedia company with Time Warner called Quincy Jones Entertainment, which included a wide range of programming and publishing endeavors. Now, while serving as chairman and CEO of Quincy Jones Entertainment, he produced the beloved sitcom called Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. This is where we got to see the rapper and his sidekick Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, who now were on our TV screen, which aired on NBC from September of 1990 to May of 1996. That's a 6-year run. Jones also ventured into publishing as the founder of the hip-hop magazine called Vibe in 1993. For those of us who were around in the early 90s, we can remember Vibe magazine. It was a huge thing. And he also published Spin and Blaze magazines as well. Through his broadcast company, Quest Broadcasting, Quincy Jones acquired TV stations in Atlanta and in New Orleans for $167 million, effectively making it the largest minority-owned broadcasting company in the USA at the time. He was out here making history. According to the AP, Quincy Jones Entertainment was sold for $270 million in 1999. In 2001, Quest Records shuttered after Warner Music Group reportedly bought out Quincy Jones's 50% stake in the label for another estimated $10 million. So he's up almost $300 million at this point. Now, meanwhile, Vibe magazine ceased publishing after 16 years after it was sold to a venture capital firm, Wix Capital, in 2009 for another estimated $35 million. I'm telling you how Quincy Jones built his wealth. So now we're over $300 million, right? Spin Media later acquired Vibe in 2013 for an undisclosed amount. Then Quincy Jones has been a long-time resident of the Bel-Air neighborhood of Los Angeles. In 2005, the music mogul sold his former Bel-Air home for close to $5.4 million, according to the Los Angeles Times. Quincy Jones then moved to a 25,000 square foot compound he built on the west side of Los Angeles. He was married 3 times. First, to his high school girlfriend, Jerry Caldwell, with whom he shared his first child, Jolie, for 9 years, and then that marriage went out until 1996. He had a son and a daughter with his second wife, Ulla Anderson, to whom he was married for 7 years until they got divorced. He divorced her to marry Twin Peaks star Peggy Lipton, and him and Peggy had 2 daughters, including actor Rashida Jones, before they got divorced in 1989. Yeah, he tried his hand at the marriage thing. It didn't work. He got divorced, did it 3 times. Quincy Jones did not marry again after that. He said 3 times, it's like baseball, right? 3 strikes, you're out. Again, but he did have 2 other children after though, Rachel and Kenya, with dancer Carol Reynolds and actress Nastasia Kinski, respectively. Now, with that said, he has left behind hundreds of millions of dollars, and his children, in his will be just fine because he cared for all his children. He equally shared for all his children, and they will now have to figure out how they're going to split up daddy's hundreds of millions of dollars. Listen, it's sad when somebody dies, but it ain't too sad when somebody dies like in their 90s. That's a long life lived. And Quincy Jones's life reads like a storybook. Most of us will never live a life like this, right? He was one of the most famous, the biggest, the strongest at one point, the wealthiest, the most powerful, etc., etc. He lived it all. He did it all, worked for and with the most powerful people, rubbed elbows and were in rooms with the most powerful and the most elite. He did it all. So at the end of his life, all we got to do is say, fly high with the ancestors. And until we all meet again, have a safe ride. Yep, that's it. Shout out to Quincy Jones and rest in peace to him. And my condolences to his family for the passing of a great man. I'll catch y'all on the next video. I'm out. Peace.